everybody, welcome back to the SES Arcade. I'm your host, Scorpio Caesar, and today we're going to be talking about the Sega Dreamcast once again. Thanks for tuning in, and well, let's get into it. Alright, as a prelude to this video, if you haven't checked out my wild video game hunt video, then check it out. It's for the video game store in Wilkes-Barre, PA, and in that video, I show you that I pick up a Sega Dreamcast for the first time in my life. That's right. The very first Sega console I've ever owned is right here. This is the Sega Dreamcast model. This is the V1. And well, I've played around with it for the past couple of months, and I gotta say, man, this thing, it takes me back to an earlier era of video games where things were a little more simple, things were a little more fun, and games just oozed personality. Now, unfortunately, games nowadays are very generic, and for the most part, I don't know, in my honest opinion, a lot of games just kind of meld into each other. However, the Sega Dreamcast, oh man, I felt like it had it all. And unfortunately, I was part of the problem because I never owned one as a kid. I was always a Sony or a Nintendo guy. And in hindsight, I wish I owned one, but granted, it didn't have a very long shelf life, unfortunately. Sega obviously discontinued it after a few short years. Was it like a couple of years it was on the market? It's like comfort food, man, in video game form. So what I want to do with today's video is talk about a bunch of games for the Sega Dreamcast that I've picked up within a couple of months, and a few other things that if you're buying a Sega Dreamcast in 2022, you might want to consider. So first off, let's talk about the Dreamcast itself and the best way to see the Dreamcast on your modern day HDTV. Now, unless you got this thing hooked up to a CRT tube television or whatever, the composite cables that it comes with generally are not going to look that great. So what you're going to want to do is invest in something better. Now, there are a bunch of wires out there that convert or upscale the Dreamcast's VGA 480p signal to HDMI. Some do it better than others. I'm not here to really review any of them except one. I'm here to talk about the Gecko from the Bahar Bros. And I wouldn't know any of this unless it was for Adam Korlick's channel, because he's a huge Sega Dreamcast fan and he's been making videos for the Sega Dreamcast for years. And I've been marathoning his videos. He's a great YouTuber. Definitely check him out. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't know about the Bahar Brothers or the Gecko box. And they have other versions of this that add features. This one is kind of like the more affordable version. This one was probably like around $50-something, like $60 give or take with shipping. And I don't regret it one bit. It takes the VGA signal from the 480p of the Sega Dreamcast and makes it look beautiful on your modern day HD TV. Granted, it's going to be a 480p signal, so capturing gameplay for it, you're going to have a, it's not going to be easy for everybody, but I know my Elgato doesn't really like 480p. So what I did get along with it was the M Classic. Now this is something that I've been meaning to pick up for a long time, and I finally, dived in and picked one up. Now what this does, it's got a little processor in there or something. It does some magic. Basically, it, makes the colors better, it smooths things out like the jaggies, and it upconverts a 480p signal to a 1080p signal. And it does other things as well, and there's little modes in here where you can have like a retro mode and everything. And I've noticed it works great for my Elgato capture card, and it makes Dreamcast capture an absolute godsend. Now this thing's like $89 on Amazon. Definitely pick this one up if you have any of these consoles hooked up through HDMI. It'll help a picture look better. Now, I'm simplifying things for the sake of this video, but if you want my honest opinion for a Sega Dreamcast, the best combo to do is the Gecko and the M Classic. So take that for what you will. It's not cheap, but it is worth it. Okay, now moving on. There are some accessories for the Sega Dreamcast that you may want to consider, obviously, in 2022. The Sega Dreamcast was a very interesting device when it came to the memory cards, and that is because it had these VMUs, these memory units. They actually have little LCD screens and a D-pad and a couple of buttons on there. Well, four buttons on there. And well, this thing was cool because you can actually play like a little mini game on here. It's very simple in terms of technology, but at the time this thing was mind-blowing. And to this day I still think it's pretty awesome. Especially when you hook it up with a game like Sonic Adventure and you get your Chow in here. It's amazing. Now these take two 2032 batteries, and these things are great because they come in different colors too. I just picked up a translucent blue one and a translucent black one. Now the prices on these VMUs will vary depending on their colors, but they typically range around anywhere from the $20 to $30 price range, maybe more depending on the rarity of the color. These things don't hold a lot of memory, unfortunately, so if you're looking to get a VMU for your Dreamcast and a bunch of games, you're gonna probably want to invest in some more. So definitely pick some of those up, or you could just, you know, keep it simple and get a few of the standard white ones. Another thing I had to own because it exists is the jump pack for the Sega Dreamcast. This little thing is a godsend. This thing has a rumble feature in it similar to the N64's rumble pack, and this one feels really great. This is the official Sega version. There are third-party ones out there. Not interested in really getting any third-party jump packs, but you know, different people have different experiences with them. Me personally, I wanted to pick up the first-party one. This thing will cost you close to $30. If you're looking for some force feedback from some of your games, most games support the damn thing, so definitely go out of your way and try to pick one of these up because it is so worth it. One thing I want to mention here is that if you're looking to play imports on your Sega Dreamcast and you don't want to region mod it or mess with the region BIOS on it, pick up something like this. This is the Game Shark Cheats and Codes Volume 1. I picked this up off Amazon, and what this allows for you to do is that not only does it have a few cheats in there for certain games, but it also has a function where you can actually play imports. So this is going to come in handy because a lot of Dreamcast games that I want to pick up, they're very expensive, at least the NTSC versions, so I'm probably going to have to resort to some of the Japanese ones. Okay, now that we got all of that out of the way, I want to talk about some games. Collecting for the Sega Dreamcast in 2022 is not going to be an easy task. However, if you know where to look, and usually I check on eBay, so I'm not really doing much in terms of looking. If you know where to look, you can probably get these games for somewhat to affordable prices. Now, everybody's gonna, you know, have their own opinion as to what's affordable for a console from the 6th generation. Some of these games I spent a little more than I would have liked for some of them. However, there are some that I actually didn't spend that much for. Collecting for the Sega Dreamcast in 22 is a mixed bag. Okay? Lots of games for it were low print and are very hard to come by. Unfortunately, there are some games like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Project Justice, Seaman. There's a bunch of games that are on the console that I do want to pick up. However, some of their prices are absolutely ridiculous, so I definitely have to pace myself. I've already spent quite a bit of money on this collection so far, and this is just in a matter of a couple of months. Okay, I went berserk. I need to stop. I need to slow down. So let's talk about some of the games that I picked up and my opinions on them so far. Okay, first up we have Shenmue. To get it complete in its case in a decent shape, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. It's also probably not worth it. Now, how much I paid for this, I paid pretty much what I was comfortable with. However, once I put the disc in the Dreamcast, it didn't want to read. And that was when I knew that there was something wrong. Aside from another game in this collection, this is the one that gives me the most issues. I actually have to turn the Dreamcast upside down and let it run like that in order for me to actually play the game. So I'm going to give you a heads up now. There are easier, better ways to experience Shenmue. There is the HD remaster, which has part 1 and 2 on it, so if you're looking to get a more modern HD remaster of it, then that's your option right there. That's the best option to play Shenmue these days. Me personally, I wanted to experience Shenmue on the Dreamcast, so that's why I picked it up for that system. Next up, we have Dragon Riders Chronicles of Pern. I've talked about this before. This is not a good game.
Yes, Decor.
This is only for diehard fans of the Anne McCaffrey Dragon Rider series of books. I picked this up mainly because my wife wanted me to play it, so we play it for the laughs, honestly. It's that bad. This game is terrible from what I've played. And, well, it barely works on my Dreamcast too. Now, I have 2 copies of this game, and both give me issues. Sometimes the game just refuses to boot up. I have to, like, try my Dreamcast a bunch of times in order for it to actually get working. Now, it works, and when it does work, you know, it's a horrible game, so don't get it. It's not worth it.
Never.
Next up, we have Echo the Dolphin. Now, I've never played an Echo the Dolphin game before, but I've always wanted to play them. And the fact that this is actually on the Dreamcast, it looks simply gorgeous with the Gecko and the M Classic combination. This game is beautiful. And I'm so glad I picked it up when I did. It's definitely worth trying out for those of you who are interested in these type of games and like to be an actual animal rather than a human being. It's pretty cool. Now, I haven't played that much of it, but I will get into it a little bit more. It's an epic underwater adventure. That's what it says on the back. Anyways, moving on. So, another one that's an absolute essential. Sonic Adventure. I've owned it and its sequel for years on the GameCube. And I couldn't get into it. I don't know what it was, but to actually have it on the Dreamcast, it's like the most purest way to play this kind of game. Now, I'm not trying to be an elitist here. If you have the GameCube edition, it has added like features and stuff like that. That's probably the best option to go with because I think that one is a little bit cheaper to come by. I had to own Sonic Adventure for the console that it was originally made for, and I don't regret it one bit. I'm really, really enjoying this one, and it's definitely worth checking out. If you haven't played Sonic Adventure yet, definitely check it out. Now, I always hear how Sonic had a rough transition to 3D. Bullshit! Play Sonic Adventure and you'll see that he didn't have that hard of a transition to begin with. Alright? Moving on. Dead or Alive 2. Now, I remember back at Sulphur, etc., before it became GameStop, back where I used to live in New York, I remember they were still selling Dreamcast games on their shelves. And I remember this one. This one stood out to me the most. There's obvious reason why. Take a look at the back of this. I was a teenager, what do you expect? So yeah, I love the Dead or Alive series. It's a series that's probably one of my favorite fighting game series of all time. And I had to own the Dreamcast edition of Dead or Alive 2. Granted, there was a PS2 version, and then there was the Dead or Alive Ultimate version on the Xbox. This one, however, looks beautiful on the Dreamcast. Given the combination that I'm telling you about, the Gecko and the M Classic, it looks gorgeous. However, the Japanese edition has added content, and this is not something I knew about until just recently. So with that, I'm going to have to pick up the Japanese edition. So, it is what it is. Mortal Kombat Gold. Now, I got this from my boy, Super Mario Zilla. Thank you, Vinny, for trading this with me. I traded him a figure and paid him a couple of bucks, well, his sister a couple of bucks, in order to get this off them. And I've never actually played Mortal Kombat 4. Yeah, so of all the Mortal Kombats I've played, 4 was the one I've never actually owned or played. Now I finally own it. I own it on the Dreamcast. I haven't played it just yet because I just got it from him yesterday. So I'm looking forward to popping that in and seeing if it works. Now, next up we have WWF Royal Rumble. This was a curiosity of mine. I remember seeing it in arcades back at Laser Park when I was younger, and I never actually got around to playing it. I saw it uses the SmackDown engine, and I was like, wow, that looks pretty cool. A SmackDown engine game on the Dreamcast. This is such a bare bones experience. I would like to review this in the near future. However, man, you can tell this was an arcade game that was just ported to the Dreamcast because, gosh, it hasn't aged well. Some of the graphics are pretty primitive, even by the SmackDown game standards. But it's nice to own. However, probably not worth the price I paid for it. WWF Attitude. Now, this one's scratched to shit, and the seller is lucky I didn't return it because some of the music tracks in this game just do not work at all. Why I picked it up on the Dreamcast? Well, I was misinformed. I thought it ran in 480p through the VGA mode. It unfortunately doesn't. So in order for me to play this, I have to use the composite cables for it. So that means you're not going to see any gameplay footage of this game. For some reason, the Acclaim video game, for some reason, the Acclaim WWF and WWE games, for some reason, the Acclaim games just have issues running in VGA mode, and this one in particular just doesn't want to work at all in VGA mode. So I wasted a few bucks on that one. Should have gotten it on the PlayStation 1. Whatever. Next up, we have Sega Rally 2. Now, I do want to pick up Sega Rally on the Sega Saturn because I know that's everybody's favorite version of it. It's a pretty fun run from what I've played. However, it is kicking my ass. And it's definitely something I have to play some more of. It's just kind of one of those Dreamcast games that you just kind of have to own. Speaking of racing games, here's the other one I picked up as well. Daytona USA. This one goes for ridiculous prices. I've seen it go up to $89, $90. I managed to win an auction for this one, so I didn't pay that much for it, thankfully. And can I be honest with you? It's kicking my ass as well. For some reason, the steering on it just kind of feels off, so I had to turn down the sensitivity on it in order to really get anywhere with it. But maybe I just suck. I just probably suck at it. But I did hear that some people complaining about the Dreamcast edition, the controls not really working that well, you know, as opposed to owning a racing wheel. So maybe I'll get a Dreamcast racing wheel in the future. Who knows? Right, let's move on. Next up, we have Crazy Taxi 1 and Crazy Taxi 2. Now, Crazy Taxi 1 I already own on the PS2. However, I originally experienced it on the Dreamcast. I had to own the original on the Dreamcast. That's just how things work. Thankfully, it's one of the more affordable games in the series. The sequel, however, a little more harder to come by for a decent price. Me, however, my infinite wisdom, managed to find them both in the same auction, and I managed to win them for basically what the price of Crazy Taxi goes for alone. So, I think I did pretty well for myself. Now, Crazy Taxi 2 is one of those taxiing games on the Dreamcast for some odd reason. It's having issues when it comes to loading certain parts of the world, and you could just see my Dreamcast is just kind of like, help! I can't handle it for some reason. The GD-ROM drive on that thing needs to be replaced ASAP. Choo Choo Rocket. This was another game on the Dreamcast that I originally played when I first played a Dreamcast. It just kind of like stuck with me ever since. So the reason why I have two copies of it here is because the original copy that I got, the seller did not tell me at all that the manual was simply the front sheet and the back sheet taped together. Since there was no mention of it in the listing whatsoever, the seller was kind enough to give me a full refund and told me to keep the game. I was willing to return it, however, because I also ordered another one, complete with the manual. And it's a good thing, it's a blessing in disguise that he told me to keep the original one, because for some reason the disc on this one has some sticker residue on the top, and it doesn't want to run on my Dreamcast. Next up, we have Blue Stinger. Oh my god, Blue Stinger. This was a launch title, and it's a survival horror title. And I mean that in the most basic sense of the word. The freaking voice acting in this game and the animations of the characters is so basic.
And this hairy guy is...
His name is Dogs Bauer. He's a captain of the SS cargo Diana.
What? You guys know each other?
But it's so charming at the same time, I cannot stop from playing it. It's very interesting. And definitely a must try for any of you who are into that genre. Just don't go expecting anything Resident Evil-esque from this game. Sure, it's got creepy monsters and the atmosphere is not even that scary. It's not even scary at all. Like, it's hilarious so far. It's definitely worth trying though. If you haven't played Blue Stinger, do yourself a favor and check it out. It's not that expensive. honestly, and it's probably the only way you can actually get around to playing it, so check it out. Blue Stinger. Right on. Resident Evil Code Veronica. Now, Resident Evil Code Veronica has had many ports, one to the PlayStation 2, and also there were HD editions released for the 360 and PS3, as well as the PS2 edition released for the PS4, I believe. I had to own it on the original Dreamcast because I remember when this game was originally announced, I was like, what? I felt betrayed, okay? Like, I remember Resident Evil 3 being one of my favorite games of all time back then, and I was like, wait, Resident Evil's not going to be on PlayStation anymore? I was heartbroken, like seriously, when I saw that Fingerhut magazine and that ad for only on the Dreamcast, Code Veronica, I was hurt. I was legitimately hurt. However, I played this game multiple times. Like I said, I played it on the PS2, I have the 360 edition, and I never got around to finishing it. So I decided, you know what, maybe I should pick it up on the hardware that was originally made for, and this game looks great. I always thought it looked kind of crappy, considering, you know, it doesn't have pre-rendered backgrounds anymore. But I gotta say, playing it on the Dreamcast with the Gecko and M Classic, once again, it looks sharp. And the game doesn't look as bad as I originally thought. Now, here's one of those weird asterisks that I have to include here because I can't progress any further in the first disc. For some reason, I get to this door here in the mansion, and I just get black screen and the sound of thunder in the background. After this loading screen, it's stuck. It does not want to progress. So that means there's something wrong with the disc, right? That's what I'm going to go with. The disc looks immaculate, though. That's the problem here. So I'm probably going to have to pick up just the discs alone and see if I can progress any further. Hopefully that'll be cheaper than what I paid for this. It should be. But, yeah. Damn. Next up, we have a cool little game called Toy Commander. Now, you play as a bunch of, like, RC toys and everything in a kitchen and a living room, and it's such a product of its time. And if you haven't played it, and you own a Dreamcast, you should definitely check it out. I cannot give this game higher praise because so far from what I played, it's a very unique experience and it's only on the Dreamcast, so check it out. And it's not that expensive, that's the best part about it too. Next up we have from the Import Tuner series, Tokyo Extreme Racer. Now I'll be honest with you, when I originally played this with the composite cables, I was not having a good time. The game was too dark. For some reason, I just couldn't get into it. I didn't like the way it looked. However, once I used the VGA output for the Dreamcast and upscaled to the M Classic, I can see what's going on. The game isn't as dark and the headlights don't look as bad anymore. So it's something that I come back to every now and then whenever I'm in the mood for it. But it's definitely not for everybody. But I enjoy it for what it is. Next up we have Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battle. This is a game that I originally owned on the PlayStation 1, and I want to do some Star Wars video game coverage when it comes to May, because May the 4th is Star Wars month. And I think I'm going to cover Jedi Power Battles on the Dreamcast. Now, this is a better looking version of the PlayStation 1 edition, and a lot of people prefer this version, and I can't argue with them. It honestly looks a lot better. However, it does play very similarly. Soul Calibur, I already talked about it in my wild video game hunt when I picked up the Dreamcast. Definitely a must-have if you have the Dreamcast, because it's probably the best way you're ever going to play Soul Calibur, at least the original one. So yeah, must own. Another must own for the Dreamcast, Rayman 2 The Great Escape. I do own Rayman 3, and I did play Origins and Legends. Great games, by the way. Never really played Rayman 2, despite the game being ported to pretty much every console of that generation. I heard the best one to play though is on the Dreamcast, and I could definitely see that because the graphics in this game are absolutely gorgeous, especially with all the good stuff that I'm using. Next up we have a very weird game, and this is one of those games where I was talking about the Dreamcast library had personality that you wouldn't believe. This is one of those cases. Now, it doesn't have the manual. I have that coming in a separate purchase. However, Pen Triathlon. This freaking game is so weird. You play like these weird penguin animal hybrids and you're racing through these courses. And it's something that you can only really get from the 6th generation of consoles. They don't make games like this anymore, okay? Like, it's sad, but it's true. Metropolis Street Racer. This game is tough. However, this was made by Bizarre Creations, and this was kind of like the precursor of one of my favorite racing game series of all time on the Xbox, Project Gotham Racing. I love Project Gotham Racing. I love that series so much. I'm so sad that it's gone. But Metropolis Street Racer, it's great to see their roots and where they started, and I could definitely feel the Project Gotham, the feel of it, it's in this game. The Kudo system is in this game. However, the game is tough, so be forewarned, it does not go easy on you in terms of progression. Here is another unfortunate incident. Here we have Hydro Thunder. Unfortunately, you're not going to see any gameplay for this one because Hydro Thunder does not want to work. At least not with the VGA output. I heard mixed things about this. I heard there were 3 different releases of this game, and for some odd reason, this version does not want to output in 480p, so you're not going to see any gameplay of it here, unfortunately. So, from what I played though, I enjoyed it. I just can't play it through VGA. Next up, we have the last 3, and here I had to pick this one up. Now, I originally played Jet Set Radio Future on the Xbox. I never really got into it. However, I heard Jet Grind Radio is the one to play. And from what I've played so far, I'll be honest with you, I haven't played much of it, but I do plan to change that. I'm just glad I have it for the Dreamcast, because it's one of those games that you just gotta own on the Dreamcast. I mean, there are other ways you can play it, but come on, man. This is a Dreamcast buying guide, right? Now, here are the heavy hitters. These are the 2 that cost me the most of all of these games. And I'm saving them for last because obviously. Next up, we have... This was a holy grail of mine. And like I said, I owned this on the GameCube as well for the longest time. Couldn't get into it for whatever reason. However, I own it on the Dreamcast now. This is in mint shape. It looks and plays great on the Dreamcast. Sonic Adventure 2. I remember when this game was being advertised. I remember the commercials for it. I remember being like shocked by the craziness of that commercial, and I wanted this game. I was like, wow, this looks awesome. Shadow the Hedgehog looks so badass in that commercial. I wanted to play this game. I just didn't have a Dreamcast to do it. So when I got it on the GameCube, I didn't play it. Sorry. So glad I got it on the Dreamcast now, and it's the most purest way to play it. However, it is going to cost you a pretty damn penny. So if you're looking to pick up Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast, expect to pay upwards to nearly $100 for this thing, because for some reason the price on this thing has skyrocketed. It's probably easier to pick it up on the GameCube, all things considered. And last but not least, we have Resident Evil 2. This game I originally played on the PlayStation, so why pick up the Dreamcast version? Well, the Dreamcast version looks great. It outputs in VGA mode with 480p, and with the M Classic, this game looks absolutely gorgeous compared to the original PlayStation edition. However, it's gonna cost you a pretty penny. And, I'm not proud of it. I really am not proud of it. I had to sell a few things to, make up the cost on this one. Thankfully, Resident Evil 3 is going to be a little bit cheaper than this one, but still pretty pricey. So, Resident Evil 2. There are easier ways to experience this and much cheaper ways to experience it. I definitely suggest you downloading it from the PSN network. If you have a PlayStation 3, get it from there if you need to experience Resident Evil 2 and haven't played it yet. But if you want my honest opinion, probably the best ways to play this are on the Dreamcast. And yeah, that's it for this buying guide for the Sega Dreamcast. I hope this video was informative, helpful, and enjoyable for all of you. I hope it wasn't boring, because in that case, then I didn't do my job right. Granted, I'm not getting paid for this. This is just a passion video for the Sega Dreamcast, a console that I originally missed out on, and I really wanted to make it up to Sega and the Dreamcast by making this video. Sure, it's 22 years or so too late, but it's never too late to buy a Dreamcast and pick up some great titles for it. Because honestly speaking, if you're looking to pick up a Sega Dreamcast, I highly suggest you do it now. Anyways, thanks for watching this video, everyone. I hope it was enjoyable for you all. Hit the like button if you liked it. Share the video with some of your friends. Again, this is Scorpio Caesar from the SES Arcade. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all very soon. If you have any recommendations as to any more Dreamcast titles that I missed out on in this video, do let me know in the comments section below. Alright everybody, I look forward to seeing you all very soon, so take care.